Hello, this is Miller Booker B. Today I want to go over my current Lilith Loop Deck. You might have seen my old Lilith Loop Deck on Digitamer Joel's channel, but here's the updates I've made since going through the format. As of right now, my deck is mostly complete. I'm not going to change that much until the end of the format, maybe one or two cards in here and there, and I'll talk about that throughout the deck profile. So let's begin. So this is my current Lilith Loop Deck. As you can see, we are running 10 level 3s, 12 level 4s, 8 level 5s, 5 level 6s, 2 level 7s, 9 options, and 4 tamers. Before we continue, I want to show you a different way to kind of look at how I built my deck. So this is a more functional way to think about how you build your Digimon deck. As you can see, it's the same exact deck list if you look at it card for card, but the order might be a little bit different, and I'm going to explain that. So the way this is set up is we have our cards we want to start the game with, which would be Eismon Scatter Mode above all else, followed by our rookies, followed by Analog Youth. So these are what I'd like to consider my starting cards I would always like to see in my hand when I start the game, kind of get the plays going. And the order of the deck is sort of the order I would like to see my cards. So we have our starting cards, we have our cards that extend plays after that, and then cards that further extend those plays, and then finally our finishers at the bottom. So let's go through the deck list. We start with 4 Eismon Scatter Mode. This is the most broken card in purple right now because of the other Eismon that we'll get to later. It allows us to cycle our deck and eventually play more bodies. Next we have Gabumon. This is the best inheritable to pair with Eismon Scatter Mode. It's also just the best inheritable in our deck even if we don't get the Scatter Mode, because it just allows us to further dig through our deck, draw more cards. Elecmon is a good answer to all of the rookies that counter us at the moment. So there's a lot of floodgates and memory blockers that we have to deal with. So these were replaced over the Tapirmons in my last list to better deal with those cards that prevent us from playing the game. 2 Gazimon to help stop the mirror match and blue decks and any other kind of deck that wants to increase its memory. That way we have our own floodgate. We play not that many. We don't really have to max out on it because we have so much cycle once our deck gets going. And then 1 Tsukaimon, this is sort of a flex spot. This could really be any other rookie or more options that extend plays. Because of the new Mulligan rules, we have pretty good ratios. This allows us to gain memory when something is deleted. I like to think of this as like my 5th Gabumon. It's pretty good later in the game when I no longer need to draw cards and are more important to make big, explosive plays and expand my turns further. Finally, my other starter card is Analog Youth. Even if I don't draw a rookie, Analog Youth is a card I'm very excited to see because it allows me to dig through my deck and start setting up for my 10 trash threshold while also finding a consistent piece like a rookie, like an extender like Eismon or Eismon Scatter Mode to help start my plays and get them rolling. Next, we'll get the next grouping of cards. King Kakumon is here first, as this is sort of a bridge between being a starting card and an extending card. It is the worst starting card, so I don't consider it a starter, but sometimes this is how we have to start our games. Followed by Eismon, the best extender in our deck. We would love to see this every opening hand along with Scatter Mode. It is the reason this deck is so powerful right now. It's the reason this deck is not going to be powerful in the future as it gets limited. This card is nuts, allowing to expand our board pretty freely. Is incredibly powerful. It's super, super good. Something about playing the deck is the boosted power is very useful, especially as you're trying to get checks and swings in on your opponent. And then most of the time, unless I am going into an immediate swinging with Eismon before digivolving it is a pretty common strategy I use, as if it's at 7 or 9k, it's pretty likely to survive in this format in particular. Next, we have a Ginkaku Remote. This helps with our finishers and also is one of the best ways to sneak in more damage with the Eismons, as it can digivolve for 1 over each of the Eismons that you summon. Next up, we have these 3 options, the Calling from Darkness and the Deathclaw. Deathclaw might get upped in the future over Calling from Darkness, as it is better against... it's better to interact with the enemy board, but Calling from Darkness allows us to extend our combo plays, and these cards are pretty good extenders to Eismon, especially when our Eismon is not getting deleted like we want it to. It helps us trigger the effect on our own terms and force that interaction when our Eismon has jamming for no reason, which it happens way more this format than it should, even though it should be dying at 4k a lot. It just refuses to a lot. So these cards help us in that case, as well as helping us get crazy endgame combos that allow us to just swing out the games. Grabbing further promotes for more damage, grabbing further Nidhogg's for more memory, scatter Eismons for more summons. This card is really, Calling of Darkness is really good. Deathclaw is better defensively, of course. It's a better security bomb, and it also does similar things while allowing us to trigger on deletion effects on our own terms. Next, we have the best pair of level 5s in our deck, the Cerberus Mon package, which is a very good way to build on our Eismons after they've already swung and survived a lot of time, or just do pass turn to create a threat for the next following turn. We have the regular Cerberus Mon, which on deletion, draw 2 cards, discard 1, allows us to continue digging through our deck, digging for pieces. But on top of this, the Cerberus Mon Werewolf mode allows us to pop this card for free, allowing us to get an additional damage with the rush ability, while also being pretty massive at 9k, surviving everything that's not a level 6 in this format. And a lot of decks are playing a very minimal amount of level 6s. Maybe 6 or less on average. Blue Hybrid really only plays 2 or 3. So this card survives a lot of checks in this format. Finally, we have our auxiliary level 5s. One of these could be the other, depending on the metagame. Lady Devi is overall better, as it allows us to further cycle through our deck and continue our strategy. Whereas Rebellionmon's better, more defensive. I could cut Rebellion, however, it's very good against red and aggressive matchups, and this deck struggles against those. So I like having the 1 as an option, and I dig so much that seeing 1-ofs isn't unlikely in this deck. Next up, we have our memory gain cards. The reason these are placed here, as these are kind of cards that I want to see about once I start getting through my deck, getting to my level 5s, and started setting up the plays. This is where I want to start seeing my memory gain cards, as I've established my trash, set things up. At this point in the game, this is when I start setting up for the big Lilith turns, or setting up for big Cerberus Mon continuation combos, if we don't even need the Lilith in that particular matchup. So this is why they're here. All 6 of these cards help us gain more memory, expand our plays, and continue pushing forward on the aggression on our opponent. Matt is the worst memory gainer card, but it's also a memory setter, which is very good against decks that like to choke you. And getting choked in this deck is bad early game and doesn't matter in the late game, but we want to at least survive to the late game. So I like the 1-of. This could be cut for an additional analog youth. In fact, a lot of purple lists are not playing this for the 4th analog youth. Finally, we have all of our finishers. So Lilithmon, Lilithmon, this card is crazy. It returns 2 options to your hand if you have 10 cards in your trash. And then when you play an option, you gain 2 memory. There are often matchups where I don't even want to gain the options back. Of course, it's good, but sometimes I want to get the card established pretty early before they start getting aggressive on me, so I can start generating the advantage with this card before I get the cards back. Just because the memory advantage provides so much of a threat to our opponent. And sometimes that's just better than waiting until we can start recurring our resources. Omnimon Zwart, this is our finisher card, along with the 60% win rate. I don't like drawing this card unless I'm exactly in a late game matchup. But so Omnimon Zwart, it helps us close out games against the slower matchups. Sometimes good against blue, very good against yellow. This is one of the best cards in the yellow matchup in particular. And sometimes it comes up in key situations if that is the line of hands that you're drawing. Omnimon Zwart helps us finish the game by expanding our board. We don't have as much rush targets, but a lot of the time we are setting up a very narrow win condition or hard to destroy board state. Win rate helps us accomplish that, although sometimes it's also useful in allowing us to get to our Lilith early or our Cerberus Mons even early, just for that 1 extra memory and discarding something for Eismon as well. That could be very useful in the mid game, but most of the time this card is used to finish off the game with some kind of crazy Zwart play. Finally, we have Dead or Alive, or Ultimate Sacrifice, as it was called in Japan, which I think is a way cooler name. But Dead or Alive is another finishing card. It essentially works as a 4th Cerberus Mon Werewolf mode that can sometimes trigger insecurity and just blow out a game if you get that effect off. Rarely does it happen, but it helps us continue extending into our combo plays. If we ever get a good combo line where we're left with a Cerberus Mon on the field. We're allowed to play this card, get the Werewolf mode back, gain 9 memory. The card cost 8, so we essentially gained 1 memory, and it helps us continue to put that final push on our opponent to end the game. Anyway, I hope this deck list was informative. I hope you guys enjoy the list. I know the deck list looks weird, but I want to kind of start thinking about building our decks in much more advanced, much more meticulous ways than maybe just play this many rookies, this many champions, etc. And kind of think of what our cards are doing for our deck. Anyway, I hope you all have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the deck list. Thank you.